The truth is, Canadian salaries have not kept up with inflation.
So how are people affording to live,
Let's say that.
Would a minimum wage cover my basic living expenses in Toronto?
This is how much I spend in a regular month as a 27-year-old living in Toronto.
Vancouver is known for being quite expensive.
Toronto, the average salary in each province and territory has been revealed.
Do you think you're making good money for your age? Let's find out.
What is the average cost for your rent, to buy a home, for your groceries, for your gas? Let's break this.
Here's the average income in Canada. Let's see how you compare.
I would say that $10,000 a month in Vancouver today gets you much less of a lifestyle.
A new report suggesting workers in Toronto should be making $40 an hour to live.
Ask the obvious question, elephant in the room. Are wages keeping up?
Welcome to Canadian Rant. Let's be honest, Canada isn't affordable anymore. Everywhere you look, Canadians are working harder, longer, and yet somehow falling further behind. The price of groceries has doubled in just a few years. Rent in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver has become a joke. Except no one's laughing. Gas prices touch new records every month, and energy bills eat up what's left of our paychecks. And what about income? Wages haven't moved. Promotions barely keep up with inflation. We're told to budget better, cut back, save smarter. But how do you save when you can barely survive? Once, a full-time job meant stability, maybe even a future. Now it barely means survival. Families are cutting meals, skipping vacations, and young Canadians are giving up on ever owning a home. This is no longer just about money. This is about the collapse of the Canadian dream. A dream where hard work was supposed to pay off. If you felt this struggle, if your paycheck disappears before the month ends, hit that subscribe button, join Canadian Rant, and let's speak up together. Because this isn't just your problem, it's our national crisis.
Here's the average income in Canada. Let's see how you compare. Between the ages of 25 to 34, the median income is $48,100. Between the ages of 35 to 44, it's $60,300. Then from 45 to 54, it's just $60,400. Then from 55 to 64, it drops to $48,900, and 65 and older, it drops further to $34,600. So if you're earning above $60,000, you're ahead of most Canadians your age.
A new report suggesting workers in Toronto should be making $40 an hour to live comfortably in the city. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives calculated an $83,000 a year salary would allow a person to afford a two-bedroom apartment in the city and still have money for food and utilities. The report also found nearly all minimum wage workers who put in at least 40 hours a week are allocating more than 30% of their monthly pre-tax income toward rent or mortgage costs, which is considered unaffordable.
Do you think you're making good money for your age? Let's find out. You might be surprised. We'll break down the average annual income by age bracket based on the most recent report from Stats Canada in 2023. If you're between 16 and 24, your annual income by average should be $17,000 a year. Between 25 and 34, it's $52,000 a year. 35 to 44, it goes up to $64,000 a year. 45 to 54, it goes up to $67,000 a year. 55 to 64, it drops down to $58K a year. 65 and up, it's $39K a year. Keep in mind this includes full-time, part-time, and unemployed people, so the results are going to skew downwards. If you're below average and young, I wouldn't worry. You have a lot of time, and income tends to increase over your lifetime. If you want yours to grow a bit faster, follow Finance with Fies for more tips.
Toronto, the average salary in each province and territory has been revealed, and the gap is massive. Here's all the info from this online article. The cost of living is a major concern for all Canadians. Housing, grocery, and everyday expenses are not getting cheaper, so keeping an eye on the salary trends can help you determine where you stand. Here are the top 6 above average salaries in Canada, and here are the bottom 7 below average salaries in Canada. And in Canada, the average weekly earnings have increased by 5%. So Toronto, what are your thoughts on this new report? Let me know below.
Vancouver is known for being quite expensive. How much do you think someone has to make in order to live comfortably in this city?
Oh God. I guess it depends on your definition of comfortable, but to even survive, I'm guessing like your minimum, depending on where you are, is probably like 40, 50K just to like not live in a horrible situation, I would imagine. Like, yeah. I'm guessing, like, I don't know.
I find a lot of people like say more, but yeah, it really depends on your definition of comfortable, because like I could be comfortable with a lot less, but some people like really need some more luxury stuff to feel comfortable.
Yeah, well, I mean, you shouldn't, if you think about the average rent, the average one bedroom is I think $2,800, something like that. Yeah. I mean, that's already most of that gone, right? So I would think there'd be at least 50 just to not be, in poverty.
Yeah.
The truth is, Canadian salaries have not kept up with inflation, despite what the government says, despite the fact that I think statistically they say it's 1.72%. That's where our inflation sits at. Honestly, I was at Safeway today. I go to look at the juice cooler. I don't normally buy juice, so I actually don't know how expensive juices have gotten. But I looked. The Tropicana was $13.99. So almost $14 for a 2-liter jug of juice. So if you earn minimum wage in Canada, you're making roughly $17, $18 an hour. It is just crazy. And of course, yes, you can shop somewhere else. You can go to Walmart. You can consider other stores, other options, and not shop at Safeway. But that's not the point. Like, Canada has just gotten so expensive that salaries have certainly not kept up with it. I can honestly say that I don't think Canada is okay. Not from my perspective. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
This is how much it costs to live in Quebec, Canada. Average salary, $47.5 thousand. Income tax, including federal, provincial, EI deduction, Quebec pension plan, and Quebec parental insurance plan, $15.1 thousand. Rent, $14,000. Utilities, $2.9 thousand. Food, $6,024. Transportation, $1,300. And health insurance is $0. Total expenses, $39,390, or 82.99% of average gross income.
What is enough money to live comfortably?
I'd say it's kind of hard to say in Canada because it seems that number rises every single year.
For you right now.
Oh, for me? I'd say living comfortably, like, obviously you want to make $1 million, but
yeah.
living comfortably would probably be around, like,
your own house, your own car.
80K. Like, it depends where you're living. Toronto, no. Like, you're not living in Toronto. Montreal, maybe, if you're living in, like, Laval. Obviously, like, 100K would be like, you're doing whatever you want, whenever you want kind of thing. You're going out to eat, you're going to whatever. But yeah, I'd say realistically, you could live comfortably around 60 to 80K.
And it's not like wages are rising to match any of this. Let's just pause for a second and ask the obvious question, elephant in the room. Are wages keeping up? Because here's what the data shows us. Average hourly wage in Canada, $31.15. That's $4,975 per month before tax for a full-time worker. Now compare that to rent, approximately $2,600 a month, groceries about $1,100 a month for a family, gas and essentials $500 to $800 a month. That doesn't leave much for savings, let alone emergencies or life. And it's even tighter for gig workers, part-timers, or small-town jobs where wages are below the national average. This is where the resilience narrative from Ottawa starts to really fall apart. If you're working a full-time job and are still falling behind, you're not alone. This is a systemic issue, not a personal failure.
So how are people affording to live,
Let's say they're making $50K a year, okay? After tax, that's $40K a year. Per month income, that's $3,300 a month. Once you get a one bedroom, yeah, it is.
That's good math.
I'm pretty good at math.
It is.
So $3,300 a month.
Yeah.
If you get a one bedroom condo, assuming you have the $10,000 to buy furniture and furnish the fucking place, the one bedroom condo is like $2,500. So you're left with $800 a month for everything else. That's if you're living alone.
That's food, cell phone, internet. I mean, if you got Netflix, most people got streaming sites. What if you have a car? Now we're talking insurance, we're talking finance. If you go to the gym, there's definitely.
So what are these people doing?
Here's an updated list of the minimum wages per hour across Canada. In Alberta, the minimum wage hasn't changed since 2018 and is still $15 per hour. The Northwest Territories have also kept their minimum wage unchanged since 2023, holding steady at $16.05 per hour. Next, Nunavut holds the highest minimum wage in Canada at $19 per hour. Moving on, several provinces have also increased their minimum wages. In New Brunswick, the rate is now $15.30 per hour, Newfoundland and Labrador at $15.60 per hour, Nova Scotia at $15.20 per hour, and Yukon at $17.50 $15.59 per hour. Following along in May, Quebec raised its minimum wage to $15.75 per hour, and more recently, BC raised its minimum wage to $17.40 on June 1st. Finally, several other provinces will see increases on October 1st, 2024. Ontario will raise theirs to $17.20 per hour, Prince Edward Island at $16 per hour, Saskatchewan at $15 per hour, and Manitoba at $15.80 per hour. Nunavut has the highest minimum wage in Canada and saw the biggest jump, increasing from $16 to $19 per hour, which is about an 18.75% increase. On the flip side, Saskatchewan had the smallest increase, going from $14 to $15 per hour, and it also had the lowest minimum wage among those changing this year. All wages are adjusted based on the Consumer Price Index, which measures the cost of things we buy, so this helps keep up with inflation. But do you think that these changes are enough to cover basic living expenses in your province? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
This is how much I spend in a regular month as a 27-year-old living in Toronto, Canada. So I'm going to start off with rent. I was pretty lucky to find a one-bedroom apartment where I pay $1,900, and that includes utilities. Second thing is insurance. So I use a company called Duo, and I pay about $42 per month for tenant insurance. My phone bill, I use the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and I'm paying for that as well. I pay about $129 per month. My groceries, I shop about twice a month from Walmart, so I pay about $250 per month. My transportation cost, depending if I'm going out a lot that month, I'm going to spend about $300 to $200 on transport. That's using Uber and Lyft. Entertainment cost, that's going out with my friends, tickets, drinks, and all that. I spend about $250 per month. Fitness, going to the gym costs me about $20 per month. Personal care, that includes like my grooming, toiletries, all that costs $70 per month. For savings, I try to put at least $1,000 away every single month for emergencies. For other subscriptions like Netflix, Spotify, YouTube, and the rest, I pay about $100 per month. And for any other emergencies or miscellaneous that might come up, I spend about $200 per month, bringing the total I spend in a month to 4,261 Canadian dollars. Do you think I'm spending too much? Let me know in the comments.
What is the average cost for your rent, to buy a home, for your groceries, for your gas? Let's break this down. I'm Canadian. I'm going to tell you what mine is, and you let me know what yours is. The reason this is coming up because I have a lot of clients that complain about their rent and their housing and the affordability, and they need to make more money, and I'm like, okay, let's get realistic, because you're doing pretty good over there. Most of you are. Let's break it down. Average minimum wage in Canada is $17.50. Average rent is $1,600 to $2,000 plus utilities. Average utilities is about $200 to $300 a month. Cable and cellular phone is probably one of the highest in the world. That's what I'm thinking. We're paying, if you're going to have both, you're probably paying close to $200, $150 to $200 if you don't want to have like the low priced.
Let's budget a $56,000 salary for a 28-year-old living in Victoria, BC. They work in marketing, live by themselves, have no kids, no emergency fund, and the goal is to make a plan to pay off their debts within a year. Net monthly income totals to $3,500, and fixed expenses make up 56% of her income, totaling $1,961. She owes the CRA $3,300 and $4,000 on her credit card, which we'll come back to. She's currently setting aside $150 a month toward registered accounts. Also, if anyone knows what LTS stands for, please let me know because I have no clue. She spends $605 a month on various necessities, which seems pretty reasonable, but for once, she spends over $690 a month, and she's aware that this is too much. The first thing that I would change is the savings. I would pause contributions to my registered accounts and try to just focus on building up my emergency fund until my debts are paid off. And then for once, we're saying goodbye to a lot of the eating out spending. I would also pause my nail appointments and reduce the shopping budget, which leaves her with $245 a month. Now we can increase her debt payment to $614 a month, which means she can get out of all of this debt within 14 months. If she were to get a part-time job, she could easily get this debt cleared off within 6 months. For me, I'd rather hustle for a bit and get this over with instead of it dragging out for over a year. Let me know what you do.
I would say that $10,000 a month in Vancouver today gets you much less of a lifestyle than even like 10, 15 years ago making 50 grand a year. And the way I found this out was I've been making between $20,000 and $40,000 a month for the entirety of this year, and it doesn't feel like I'm in great shape.
So let's say he makes 30,000 in the middle. That's 360K a year. Okay, let's continue.
I still cannot buy a house.
We'll do the math in a second. That doesn't seem to make sense.
That is absolutely insane. And honestly, I am pretty good with my money. Now, I'm not saying any of this to say, oh, you should just go out and try to make a whole bunch more money. I'm saying this stuff to say it's okay to rent. Don't feel like just because whoever it is around you is buying their first house that you have to as well. Don't look at that from the outside and think, oh, I'm 28, why don't I have a house yet? It's just a different landscape. Be okay.
Yeah, that's fine if you don't want to buy and you prefer to rent and you want to invest that money into your business or something like that. But to say that you can't afford to buy and you make between 20 to 40,000 a month, that's absurd. Let's see what he has to say now.
Focus on making more money. Focus on the things that actually matter.
All right, so let's use the $10,000 amount as an example. So let's say it's 10K gross, take off $3,000 for taxes. So let's say your net take home is around $7,000, $7,500. Then you're looking at a 1-bedroom in Vancouver. Minimum for 1 bedroom is $2,400. Then you've got food and groceries. We'll go on the low side as well, $600. Let's assume you have a car, $500, car insurance, $200 to $300, gas, $200 to $300, utilities, $300, miscellaneous, $250, which is very, very little. People spend much more than that. So your total monthly expenses are going to be around $4,500. So take that off of the net amount of $7,000, and you're looking at between $2,500 to around $3,000 net after all of your expenses. So to say that you're not doing that well, I mean, if you have any debt at all, obviously that's going to eat into that 3K or that 2,500. So yeah, you're not going to be thriving making that 10K, but to say that you can't save for a down payment after 1 year, that's still going to be $36,000, and you can easily buy a 1-bedroom, even on the outskirts of Vancouver. But for this gentleman to say he makes on average $30K a month, that's $360,000 a year, you can afford to buy a property. I think he's just trying to make the point that if you want to rent, you should rent, but don't justify it with these numbers and saying you can't afford it. Because if you're making $30,000 a month, you can definitely afford to buy in Vancouver.
Let me shock you. Do you know that the more money you earn abroad, the more the government takes it away from you? When we move abroad, we forget the fact that the system was built for like entrepreneurs and people who are here to invest, not people who are here to be earning salary. Let me give you an example of somebody. He came to Canada, he worked 2 jobs, and he even did overtime so many times just because he wanted to make ends meet. By the time his paycheck landed, see, the guy's taxes had swallowed a huge chunk of his own sweat. That's when reality sets in. See, the system rewards those who understand money, not just those who want to be working hard. Of course, not everybody is going to be a business owner, I get it. But if you don't understand the economic environment here, abroad, you'll keep running in circles. You'll keep working, you keep paying bills, you keep paying tax, on repeat steady like that. And that is why so many of us, we have been abroad for years and we're still doing paycheck to paycheck. I know one of my friends who will always hear me and say, Gloria, Gloria, leave this paycheck and be an entrepreneur. The system will not save you if you continue this way. You need to learn how to play the money game where you are, no matter if you're in the UK, US, or anywhere, Canada even. So let me ask you, are you just surviving abroad or are you actually building wealth? Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. This is really a controversial topic, I understand.
I gotta talk to my Albertans. Y'all think you want to separate from Canada, right? And how long do you think you'll last as an independent nation? With all your oil resources, I'd say you'd be the 51st state in, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Nope. It's not going to be good for you, Alberta. I mean, just look at Montana, your closest state. The minimum wage there is $10.50 an hour. It's $15 an hour in Alberta. Plus free healthcare. Plus, if you qualify, free dental. Plus $10 a day daycare. Plus double the tax credit that you would get for children in the United States. The only thing you get from becoming an American is you can write off the interest on your mortgage. That's it. There's no other advantage. And yet, Y'all are sitting there going, yep, that's what we want. We want to be independent of Canada. And you think that your independence is going to last, right? There's no way that's not going to happen. So what I would suggest that you do is you go to the UK and you start to try and find yourself a conservative who will stand there and look you in the eyes and tell you that Brexit was a good idea, because you won't find it. God bless you, Alberta. Think this one through.
If you make over 6 figures, watch this video because I want to share exactly how much your income changes based on where you live. I think it's really funny when people compare my income based off of what they make because they live in a higher cost of living state. I make $55,000 a year and my expenses and my rent are really, really low because of that. So let's break down the cost comparisons. I make $55,000 a year in Arkansas, and after taxes and deductions, I'm left with a total of $3,400 a month. My rent for a 1-bedroom apartment is $910, and so that is 26% of my total income. Now, for example, let's say you make $100K in the state of California. After taxes, you're left with a total of $6,000 each month. Assuming that you live in a nicer area, I would say rent could be around $2,500, which is around 42% of your total income. Also taking into consideration cost of living, so gas, groceries, eating out, all of those different expenses that can be almost double the price in a state like California, it is definitely more of your income that's being taken out. I completely understand when people say that I'm being underpaid. Of course, I want to keep growing in my career and make more money, but ultimately it is pretty on par with the cost of living in my area. Let me know if this type of content is interesting to you or helpful at all, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
Would a minimum wage cover my basic living expenses in Toronto? Before we dive into how much I personally spend in Toronto, let's take a look at the national statistics and see if it's actually enough to cover basic living expenses. They say Victoria, BC has the biggest gap between a minimum wage and a living wage. There is a minimum wage of $15 per hour, while a minimum wage is $24 per hour. That means a full-time employee would still fall $16,000 short on covering their basic needs every year. Similar situation is in Toronto, where the living wage is $23 per hour, and in Calgary it's $22 per hour. While in both cities, the minimum wage ranges from $14 to $16 per hour. Regina, Saskatchewan is the city that comes closest with a living wage of $16 per hour and a minimum wage of $13 per hour. Now let's compare my personal living expenses and see if it's actually true. Let's start with the rent. My fiance and I rent a 1-bedroom condo in North York that we pay $23.50 for in total. We split rent and food. By the way, on food we spend around $300 per week, which is $1,200 per month. Eating out and entertainment such as movies, coffee, etc. is around $300 per month. The next is car insurance, which is my headache. I'm a newcomer, I'm under 25 years old, I live in a high accident area as per my insurance, so the cheapest quote I got is $500 per month. I know it's a lot. Gas is around $300. I paid for car in cash, so no monthly payments. My monthly services such as Netflix, mobility services, home internet, in total is $220 per month. Then around $200 I always have something to spend on, such as new clothes, fix something in the car, or buy new equipment for YouTube. So it costs me around $3,300 per month to live in Toronto. In Toronto, the minimum wage is $15.5 per hour, which is $12.4 after tax. So in order to cover my basic living expenses, I would need to work around 266 hours per month or around 66 hours per week, which is not allowed if I'm not mistaken, but I can be wrong.
We keep working, we keep hoping, and yet nothing changes. Canadians are doing everything right and still ending up broke. You graduate, you get a job, you pay your taxes, and somehow your savings disappear before your next paycheck even arrives. You skip meals to pay rent, you skip outings to fill your gas tank, and you skip dreams because this system has left no room for them. The average Canadian now spends over 60% of their income just on housing and groceries. That means most people are living on borrowed time or borrowed money. Credit card debt is at record highs. Families are living paycheck to paycheck. And what does the government do? They tell us inflation is cooling. They tell us the economy is resilient. But walk into any grocery store, talk to any landlord, or look at your utility bill, and you'll see the truth. Resilient? Number. Canadians are exhausted. This isn't just economics. This is emotional. It's the anxiety every time a bill hits your inbox. It's the guilt of saying no to your kid because you can't afford a school trip. It's the frustration of watching your parents' generation live comfortably while yours drowns in debt. We've reached a point where survival feels like success. And that's not okay. Because this country, our Canada, used to promise more. A fair wage, a safe home, a chance to build something better for your family. But now, it feels like the harder we work, the less we have. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all. We didn't fail the system. The system failed us. So what do? We keep talking. We keep exposing. We keep demanding change because silence only helps those in power. And we've been silent for too long. If this video spoke to you, if you felt the weight of this crisis, don't let it stop here. Share this video. Comment your story. Let's turn frustration into awareness and awareness into action. This is Canadian Rant, where we speak the truth.